I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with Libs of TikTok. Libs of TikTok is a very large Twitter account run by conservative, what is it, Chaya Raichik? Is that her name? Something like that. I think I'm pronouncing her name correctly. But Chaya Raichik and the Libs of TikTok account, and this account has been tied to many, insane attacks against, LGBT people for their LGBT lifestyle. And there's literally been bomb threats and stuff like that as a result of the things that Libs of TikTok has posted to their account. Now, recently, the journalist known as Taylor Lorenz decided to do an interview with the person who runs Libs of TikTok, Chaya Raichik. I'm not the biggest fan of Taylor Lorenz, if I'm being completely honest. Their reporting is very hit or miss, more often miss than hit, if I'm being completely honest. So I'm not the biggest fan of their work. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Donated £4.
Thank you for that. I do appreciate that. But yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of their work. But having said that, when I heard that she did an interview with the person who runs Libs of TikTok, I decided we have to take a look at this. And so we have the interview here. Libs of TikTok, Chaya Raichik, Taylor Lorenz, full interview. And so we're just going to kind of go through this. We're going to give our thoughts as we go along. We probably won't be able to react to the whole thing. We'll just kind of see how it goes. But we're going to kind of listen to this interview, give our thoughts. And oh my God, I just realized she's wearing a Taylor Lorenz shirt where she looks like, I guess you could say, looks triggered or whatever. Like, imagine getting the opportunity to do an interview with someone and then wearing a shirt of them looking triggered to the interview. That is the most terminally online shit I have ever seen in my fucking life. Oh my God. Anyway.
Play that shit!
Let's get into it.
Do you know what? Is that a public park or is that a private? No, private. Private? All right, well, we'll try to keep it short.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Yeah, of course. Oh my gosh, the struggles of LA, I swear. Okay, well, now that we're going, so thank you so much for meeting. First of all, I saw Seth Dillon today saying that you guys are no longer affiliated. What happened with there? I know that he invested in you early, was a huge supporter of you. What happened to that relationship?
Just parted ways.
For what reason?
Personal reasons.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What, you didn't align?
Totally.
Get used to this. You'll see a lot of that where, like, Taylor will ask Chaya a question and Chaya will just not answer it. There's going to be a lot of deflection and a lot of just not answering questions.
Amicable. I love Seth.
Yeah.
He's a great mentor.
So why wouldn't you want him involved, or, why isn't he involved in the business anymore?
Just personal reasons. I'm not going to get into it.
Oh, okay. When did that sort of break off?
Recently.
Uh-huh. So how many staffers? Tell me a little bit more about your organization.
We are a small team.
This woman looks like a stereotype of a high school villain. She do kind of look like she'd fit right in the movie Mean Girls, doesn't she? She do kind of look that way.
Just a couple people.
I can't get over the fucking shirt. Like, that is the most terminally online shit I've ever fucking seen in my life. That's the kind of thing that, like, you would probably see something like that on some, like, meme online merch store, or like maybe some YouTuber would put something like this in their merch store. But it's the kind of thing that you'd never actually expect someone to be seen publicly wearing. It's kind of like that.
And it's all distributed?
It's what?
Which, to be fair, there's some merch in my merch shop that you would probably say that same fucking thing about.
Distributed, as in it's all remote, pretty much? Or do you guys do you have any office space?
It's remote, yeah.
Got it. So when did you start, I guess, what got you into all this? I've always wanted to ask you. I know, I wrote about sort of the history of your Twitter account, but how did you get involved in politics?
If you watch any of my interviews, I talk about this all the time. But just, COVID radicalized me.
Yeah.
Can you imagine unironically saying COVID radicalized me? Right? Like, okay, it's one thing if you say, oh, like COVID, because of the lockdowns, I had, extra time on my hands, and it kind of made me more interested in, getting in the know on political subjects and stuff like that. Because I think that happened with a lot of people. There were a lot of people who weren't really all that interested in politics, but, the COVID lockdowns made them more interested in politics, or not even just politics, but topics they wouldn't genuinely be interested in previously. They just had more time on their hands, and so they used that to kind of get into things that they previously weren't interested in. So I could kind of see like, oh, I wasn't really politically motivated before, or I wasn't really knowledgeable of politics before, but during the COVID lockdowns, I had a little bit more weight or had time on my hands. So I decided to, look into this stuff, and this is kind of where I landed on it. But like to be like, yo, I got radicalized because of COVID. That is a really fucking insane thing to say.
And they were like forcing us to wear masks and all.
Like, I know I became more interested in politics myself, obviously left-wing politics, but I became more interested in politics myself during COVID. So I get that, but like, I don't know if I'd say I was radicalized during COVID. That's an insane fucking thing to say.
Letting us leave our homes and not letting us work, and people losing their jobs, and then people now forcing a vaccine, an experimental vaccine, people dying from the vaccine.
So how did that get you interested in LGBTQ issues?
So like you'd expect it, anti-vax shit. Okay, whatever. I mean, I'm all for, look, me personally, I'm all for people being able to decide, to put whatever they want to put in their body and whatever they don't. Like, that's fine. You're your own person, make your own choices or whatever. Where I have an issue with it is when you're like literally spreading lies about a very helpful vaccine. That's like you're spreading very harmful like misinformation that's causing people that could benefit from the vaccine to not get the vaccine. That's where it becomes an issue for me. If you just decide, you know what, I don't want the vaccine and I'm not going to get it. Okay, fine. Like you do whatever you want to do with your own body. But when you're spreading misinformation that prevents people who don't know any better from getting a vaccine that would benefit them, that's where I have a problem with it.
It got me interested in politics, and then once I was interested in politics,
Granny from Narnia says I'm not vaxxed at all. I am fully vaxxed for COVID and double boosted.
I stumbled upon this whole movement, and I was absolutely appalled by what I was seeing.
Appalled by what?
The radicalization of it. The way that they come after our most innocent and vulnerable population, or kids.
This is something you see a lot with these conservative types whenever they're talking about, something that they're morally outraged about, or they're just like outright bigoted towards, is they always use the think of the kids argument. Because here's the thing, right? Obviously we can look at a situation like that and just be like, oh, this is bullshit. This person's just a bigot and they just don't want to admit it. But when you have people who are normies that aren't super politically inclined or whatever, they're just, they don't get interested in politics at all. They don't know any better. When you have people like that and they see a statement where somebody is expressing concerns for children, it's easy to sway those people to believe something that isn't true. If you can convince them that people, for example, who are pro-LGBT or pro-trans, or, people that are supportive of trans youth getting access to the gender affirming care that they need, if you can convince a normie who doesn't know any better that these people are trying to mutilate kids and stuff like that, then you could easily convince those people that, oh, all these pro-LGBT people, they're in the wrong and they're trying to groom your kids and stuff like that. It's a very common tactic because everybody cares about kids. So if you can use kids to convince people that, trans and gay people are all groomers and shit like that, and you're just looking out for the best interests of the kids, like, you could easily convince somebody who doesn't know any better.
The way that it makes there's nothing.
BNC Credit in the chat says, I'd like to know who actually died from getting a vaccine, because last I checked, that was proven to be complete bullshit. I don't recall hearing anybody die from the vaccine. I mean, obviously, like here's the reality, right? Any medical treatment you get has potential side effects. Okay. Any medical treatment you get has potential side effects. You know, we've all seen those like ads on TV for different types of medications and stuff, and they'll give their long list of potential side effects you can deal with, some of which can even be potentially death, which is kind of insane to be listening to one of those ads. And it's like, hey, here's your medication that you can take for, I don't know, allergies. By the way, a possible side effect of this allergy medication is that you could die. Oh shit! Oh shit! I mean, obviously it's a rare side effect, but for legal reasons, they have to disclose that stuff. But like, every medical procedure has possible side effects, and that includes vaccines. So are there people who probably experience negative side effects from that? Yeah, it's a possibility for sure. But the majority of people who are getting these vaccines, myself included, aren't experiencing any side effects. As far as I know, unless there's something wrong with my body that I don't know about yet, I haven't experienced any side effects from taking the vaccine. I took the, which one did I get? I just took whatever one they gave me when I showed up. I didn't ask for a specific one. I believe they gave me Moderna when I showed up. So I got Moderna. I got, you know, the fully vaxxed for the Moderna, and I've been double boosted with Moderna. So that's the vaccine that I got. But yeah, it's, I don't know. It blows my mind how much they can just say shit that is verifiably not true. And they say it with such confidence. And unfortunately, there's a lot of really gullible people out there that buy this shit.
Logical about it. There's nothing logical about chopping off kids' body parts. There's nothing logical about giving kids porn in school.
Someone in the chat says, I know of 2 people who've died from adverse effects to the COVID vaccine. Both had health conditions and bad lifestyle choices. Yeah, so see, those people, they likely, their prior health conditions had an impact on that. You know, they might have had some kind of side effect that contributed to the worsening of their conditions, but they had pre-existing conditions that led to them, you know, unfortunately passing away. And don't get me wrong, we shouldn't downplay anybody who dies. It's unfortunate for anybody to lose their life. But I think anybody reporting that there's, you know, thousands upon thousands of people dying from the COVID vaccine is just not true.
There's 2 sexes, and that's it. So, you know, anything out of that, it's just based on lies and nonsense.
Yeah. Did you grow up? I know you
Never mind the fact that there's tons of studies and tons of data that backs up that, you know, there are people who suffer from gender dysphoria, and gender affirming care helps those people get through their daily lives. Never mind that there's actual data that backs all of that up. But okay, it's all lies and bullshit, Chaya. It's all lies and bullshit.
Grew up in a sort of a more conservative community. Did you know any LGBTQ people growing up? What was your exposure to that community just in life prior to sort of understanding the world through politics?
I never really paid attention to it.
So you didn't have any LGBTQ friends or anything,
No.
family members?
No.
So your first exposure to
so it's very easy to be ignorant when you've never had any experiences with anybody who's LGBT. You know, like with me, my first experience with an LGBT person was actually my uncle. I have an uncle who's gay, and most of my life they were out as gay. I remember, I'll never forget when my mom pulled us aside to tell us that our uncle was gay. They kind of pulled myself, my sister, and my cousins aside, and they were going to give us the talk about, you know, our uncle being gay. And so they're like, I have to tell you something about your uncle, right? And so we all said, oh, you're going to tell us that they're gay? And my mom was like shocked, like, you already knew? And it's like, come on, Mom. This guy comes to every family gathering and he brings his friend with him. Mom, we know that our uncle's gay. Like, it was real funny. But that was my first experience, you know, with somebody who was LGBT. And then throughout high school, you know, I met, you know, fellow students who were LGBT as well. I didn't have any experience with anybody who was trans until adulthood. I later got a job working with a trans woman, and she was a very, very nice woman, and I enjoyed working with her. But And then obviously through my time on the internet, you meet a lot of trans people through internet communities as well. There was a trans streamer that I met through Chris Perillo's community when I used to do like tech related content. I met, a trans person through there. We have somebody who is very much remembered by a lot of my longtime supporters, known as Haley Daly, used to be one of my admins. May they rest in peace. They were a trans small creator. But basically, all throughout my life, I've had some kind of experience with LGBT people. But I can see how someone like Chaya can be extremely ignorant if, according to them, in their IRL life, they've never had any interaction with somebody who's LGBT.
LGBTQ world was through basically learning about it through the media ecosystem.
Through themselves, actually. They would say exactly what their intentions are, what their whole movement is about. So I learned about it through watching their own videos.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. What sort of videos were you watching? I mean, are you just
All
talking about
the
the TikToks that you share and stuff?
I feel like that's probably a reason why she's able to dehumanize, LGBT people so easily, because she has no experience actually interacting with them at all. So she has no heart for them because of that. Tipster, you currently have an openly trans person on your admin team. This is true. Trans girl Jade is one of my admin team, one of the members of my admin team. And she is obviously, according to her name, very openly trans. And we love trans girl Jade. Shout out to trans girl Jade for all the amazing work she does for this community.
On TikTok. It's all over TikTok.
Yeah.
Very easy to find.
Yeah. I'm curious, I feel like there's been, especially on, my colleagues have done great reporting on sort of like this rift on Twitter. I know that you have a very conservative fan base, and in your comments sometimes you'll see a lot of commentary about sort of the great replacement theory. What are your thoughts on that?
What are your thoughts on the comments on your post telling me to kill myself?
Horrible. Yeah.
That is an insane fucking deflection. And this is what I'm talking about, where a lot of like the questions that Taylor asks, like Chaya won't answer them, or they'll just deflect. They'll answer a question with a question, like what we just seen there. And here's the thing. Let me actually make this very clear, okay? I am not okay with people being harassed or receiving death threats or being doxxed or any of that stuff, okay? I've been very clear with my audience that anyone that I cover on my content, do not engage with them in a harassing or threatening way whatsoever. I've gone on record to say that if I ever find out that a member of my community is engaging in that kind of behavior, I will ban them everywhere. They will not be allowed in my community if they're engaged in that kind of behavior. It doesn't matter how horrible or vile the person is we're talking about on my stream. I do not tolerate that sort of stuff whatsoever. So here's the thing. I think that Libs of TikTok, Chaya Raichik, is a horrible fucking person. And her actions have resulted in tons of people in the LGBT community being threatened, being harassed, being attacked. And I think she's a vile, disgusting person. Having said that, I do not think the answer is to return her harassment with additional harassment. Okay, I don't think that's the answer to it. But that's just me. Anyway, let's continue.
Horrible. Obviously against that. Yeah.
So will you come out and condemn that publicly?
Oh, I would condemn it anytime. I'm against murdering anyone, of course.
So you're against death threats against me?
I would.
Didn't she also dox people? I've heard about that. There probably is instances, or at the very least, she gave enough information to help her followers dox people. Either way, it's really fucking bad. Really bad fucking shit.
I'm a big, as somebody that's dealt with a lot of online harassment, I don't defend threatening to murder anyone. But I guess I'm curious.
She might be making that up just to gain sympathy. I mean, it's possible. It's definitely possible that she's doing that. There are instances where people, as soon as they get any kind of pushback about anything, then their first thing is like, well, I'm getting death threats. And here's the thing. As somebody who's been a content creator as long as I have, I've been, on the internet creating content since 2006 through making videos and eventually, doing what I do now, which is streaming. Death threats do happen and stuff like that. It doesn't matter how big or small of a creator you are. At some point, you're probably going to get a death threat for one reason or another. And it's not okay. I don't think that sort of thing is okay. But yeah, I mean, it's possible that she's either making it up or over exaggerating it as an appeal to sympathy. It's possible.
It's,
Because a lot of times
My point is, though, I want to make it very clear to my community that we don't tolerate that kind of shit in my community. Don't do that.
times after an attack in the media, like someone like you or another journalist.
So are you saying that, like, if somebody posts something and then attacks follow, that person should answer for
She lied about a whole children's hospital and called for harassment of the staff, bro? I do remember that. Wasn't that the one where she claimed that they were doing sexual reassignment surgery to kids? And that's what I'm talking about, where a lot of these like conservative types who are anti-trans, anti-LGBT, they will literally say things that aren't fucking true, and they'll do the whole think of the children thing to appeal to normies who don't know any better. Okay, I've talked about this before, and I've gotten some pushback on social media for this, talking about the fact that, yeah, I am in favor of gender affirming care for minors. Now, obviously, there's a process that, kids go through to get gender affirming care, get a diagnosis of gender dysphoria, etc. And there's like stages to which, it starts with like, social transition, then it progresses to like puberty blockers. And then when they're old enough to make their own medical decisions, then they can move on to like HRT. And in adulthood, they can, get any surgeries that they want to get, anything like that. Right. But I got a lot of pushback for saying that I'm in favor of this kind of stuff. And like, you will see so many of these conservative types with the think of the children thing, like, oh my God, they're cutting the genitals off of like children who are like 8 years old and stuff like that. And it's like, that's not happening. That's not happening. You are literally lying to people who don't know any better. And you're using children as an excuse to spread your hatred and bigotry to other people. That's literally what's happening here.
those attacks?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Because again, like I said, for normie people who don't know any better, everybody can agree. I think everybody can agree. I'm willing to bet when I do what I'm about to do, everyone will type a 1 in the chat. I think everyone can agree that we want kids to be safe and protected, and nobody wants harm brought to children. 1 in the chat if you agree with that. I better see everyone type a 1, because I think we can all agree nobody wants harm to come to kids. So when you're someone like Chaya Raichik who's saying these people are hurting kids, we need to think of the kids, it's easy to sway people who don't know any better. Oh, these people are hurting kids? You're saying that, oh, I don't want that. Absolutely not. I don't want that. Like, anybody would agree to that. But the problem is when you're spreading misinformation to people and telling people literal fucking lies about things that are being done to kids that aren't, you're spreading misinformation, you're sparking outrage over something that doesn't exist, and you're spreading bigotry further against a group of people that, at the end of the day, they just want access to the care that they need so they can live happy, healthy lives. That's what doesn't make sense to me, because there was a time when there was a time when it was a younger me who I was raised in a Christian conservative home, okay? And, obviously, like, through that environment, I'm taught, like, hey, being LGBT, it's kind of a sin or whatever. Like, that's the stuff that I was raised to grow up in. And even my small little mind at the time, it's like, okay, well, you're telling me that according to the Bible, God says that this is a sin. But why does it matter? At the end of the day, these people are their own people. Let them live the lives that they want to live. It doesn't affect me. I'm not sinning because gay people exist. So why does it matter? That was like what little me, like I was like, what, maybe 12 years old at the time, thinking this, like, okay, well, you're telling me this is a sin, but how does that affect me? Let them live their lives however they want to live, and I'll live mine the way I want to live it. Right? Like, I've never understood the outrage and the preventing people from living their own lives the way they want to live them. It just,
People like you tell me that all the time, so I'm just asking if you think the same.
What surprises me is that the kind of people who believe these lies will listen to the lies debunked, but still question where they're getting their information from. Yeah. I've had conversations with people about these topics, and like my usual reference material that I go to, there's a content creator known as Nominal Naomi, and she has a research doc that she shares publicly. I think it's available on her Twitter. If you go to her link tree in her bio, I think it's a link tree or one of those like link sharing services. She has a link to her research master doc. Okay. And if you go in there, it shows all the research she's done and all the sources to back it up. Like, it is a valuable resource. I highly recommend it to anyone. Maybe one of my mods can go to her Twitter, grab it and share it in the chat. I'd love if you guys could help with that, if possible. Nominal Naomi's Twitter, look at her link sharing thing in her profile and look for the master doc and link it in the chat if you can. But in any case, that is a valuable resource when it comes to having these conversations, because it has so much data that backs up that so much of the bullshit that these conservatives say against trans people, it's just not fucking true. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't think I have said that here, but I think it's kind of interesting, I guess, in the conservative movement, there's this ideology around sort of white nationalism.
Let me make sure that's the right one. I see Emmy posted a link in the chat. I'm pretty sure it's the right one, but I want to verify. Yep, this is the one. The Nominal Naomi Research and Rhetoric Master Doc. I have used this so many times throughout the course of like my research when covering various different topics or whatever. So many times this has come in super handy, and it covers like various different topics in relation to gender and, things, related to trans people. It's a great starting point for familiarizing yourself with these topics. So I highly, highly recommend it. And thank you, Emmy, for sharing that in the chat. I do appreciate you for doing that for sure. Anyway, let's continue.
Which is obviously kind of a hardline ideology.
Thank you for letting us know about Naomi's doc. Let me tell you, like, I've always been pretty supportive of like trans people, but I haven't always been super understanding of like trans issues and things like gender dysphoria and gender affirming care and all that stuff. Like, I was supportive, but I didn't know a lot. And I can't begin to tell you how much of a valuable resource Naomi's doc has been in teaching me a lot of like basically filling in the holes in the knowledge that I didn't have, essentially.
That's generally been pretty critical of Jewish communities. And I'm wondering, as a Jewish woman, how do you feel about sort of aligning yourself with those people and accounts? You see this sort of rhetoric in your replies. And I only bring it up, I'm not saying that you necessarily endorse that rhetoric. I would imagine that you don't. But how do you kind of think about those nuances when you're thinking about kind of the audience that you're building?
Some of your audience says we should chop off kids' body parts. What do you think about that?
Literally just deflecting again. She won't answer a fucking question. And again, it's bullshit. It's literal bullshit. They're not chopping off kids' body parts. This isn't happening. Why are you lying?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Like, a girl says she wants to be a boy, so she chops off her breasts.
I'm a big, I believe in personal liberty and bodily autonomy personally.
So kids should be able to cut off their breasts if they think that they're boys.
I mean, I believe in gender ideology. I guess I personally, my feeling is that I believe in personal liberty. I grew up in a town.
Jenna in the chat says, heck, I didn't even know some things either, Tippy. It's okay. The fact you're trying is enough for me. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, if you're not a trans person, you're not always going to understand the ins and outs of what it's like to be a trans person, right? But I think as long as you make a good faith effort, you don't even have to go into like all kinds of research to try and find out the ins and outs of it or whatever. As long as you make a good faith effort to be respectful to people who may be different than you, whether they're trans, whether they're gay, whether they're bi, whether they're, a different race than you, whatever. I think that's fine. Like, at the end of the day, they're still people and they deserve respect just like anyone else. I will never be able to process in my mind what it's like to be hateful towards someone because they're different than me, right? I don't get that. I genuinely don't. A little bit of effort and respect goes a long way, in my opinion. Yeah, true. True. There is no gender ideology. Why is Taylor not pushing back and saying she's for it? I did catch that as well. Gender ideology is a common term used by right-wingers to try and downplay, gender identity is just being like an ideology or whatever. I think it's insane that Taylor actually, in case you didn't catch that, let me run that back real quick.
You know, I believe in personal liberty and bodily autonomy personally.
So kids should be able to cut off their breasts if they think that they're boys.
I mean, I believe in gender ideology. I guess I personally...
Yeah, Taylor should not be using that terminology. It really is terminology used to try and, what's the term? To try and invalidate people and their gender identity. Like, no, I don't know why she used that term.
Yeah, my feeling is that I believe in personal liberty. I grew up in a town...
This isn't an ideology. This is like backed up with data. Like, there's scientific data that proves that, yes, like, trans people do exist and it's a perfectly normal, acceptable thing.
Where a lot of people, for their middle school graduation, women got nose jobs. I knew somebody that got a boob job at age 14. And I guess I struggle to...
I don't know if comparing nose jobs and boob jobs to gender affirming care is... I don't know if that's it. But also, you're using that in relation to children getting surgeries that they're not getting. Like, you're literally entertaining an idea that Chaya is putting out there that's just based on lies. What Chaya is saying about, you know, kids getting, you know, their genitals mutilated and stuff like that, that's not happening. Nobody's doing this shit to kids. And you're entertaining that idea with these insane fucking arguments.
Kind of understand the criticism when there's certainly no criticism of that sort of thing, right? But then there's criticism of this other sort of gender affirming, you know, stuff. So
you're comparing a boy being allowed to chop off his penis to a teenage girl getting a nose job?
Well, just to be extra clear, I don't believe that 13-year-olds are able to make those sort of medical decisions.
Minors are, yeah.
Oh, really? And where?
Yeah. Children's National Hospital in DC gives 16-year-olds hysterectomies.
Oh, 16-year-olds.
They gave me that. They told me that directly. They said 16 girls and younger. That's what they said. So hysterectomies.
That's what they said. This is literally just, dude, trust me, bro.
Nice argument. Why don't you back it up with a source?
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
There are definitely minors. I know for sure as young as 12 who are getting...
Yeah, no, they aren't. Exactly. That's not happening. These are not things that are actually happening.
Double mastectomies. They definitely allow vaginoplasties for minors and phalloplasties. I'm not aware of a specific case of a minor, but they allow 18-year-olds,
Yeah, I wish...
Nice argument. Why don't you back it up with a source?
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
Taylor is a good journalist for getting quotes for articles and getting an interviewee to say their points that are debunked in an article. But that is a horrible method for this form of video interview. Yeah, although I will say this, I forget what Taylor was covering, but there was like an article that Taylor did on something, and like they quoted a source for their like statements, like what their source was, and their source was an article that Taylor herself had done for another outlet. And I was like, how are you quoting yourself as a source? Like, that's really fucking weird. But anyway, like I said, like, Taylor's hit or miss from time to time. I'm not the biggest fan of Taylor, but anyway.
You know, okay, 18-year-olds, you're an adult. But let's just get back to the great replacement stuff, because I'm curious, what are your thoughts on that whole ideology?
I mean, how many... There were times that there were some months over the past...
That's like PragerU pulling sources from their own site. Yeah, exactly. I kind of wish I could remember what article that was now. I'm going to have to look into that. But yeah, there was like an article that they wrote where they cited themselves as a source for the article. It was really funny.
3 years, that there were more illegals coming into our border than children being born in the U.S. Does that not look like they're trying to replace us?
I guess
no.
Sort of
They're
imagine
bringing in
America
a whole
as
new population.
a melting pot. Isn't that sort of what America was founded
No,
on?
but they're actually bringing in more people than are actually being born.
So I guess if you...
I've never understood like this argument, the whole like, oh, well, they're bringing in more immigrants than people that are being born. It's like, I don't understand why that matters. Like, Am I missing something? Like, why, if that, even if that is happening, like, why does that matter? I don't know.
It sounds like you sort of do ascribe to this theory of the Great Replacement. How does that make
I just
you
look at the
feel?
facts and the numbers.
Well, so, I mean,
I just look at the facts and the numbers.
Nice argument. Why don't you back it up with a source?
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
I have a feeling we're going to play that a lot during the course of this interview.
let's give a corollary, right? A lot of Jewish people fled, Europe, came over here also as immigrants. And there's a lot of criticism towards Jewish people in those movements, in those far-right movements. So I'm just wondering, as a Jewish woman, sort of how you feel about that and your role in cultivating this fan base that might think of you as a minority, an outsider.
Not all cultures are equal. Yeah.
Yeah, a filmed interview is a debate. Treating it like a print interview makes it just cringe to listen to, and Taylor poorly never pushes back on obviously bigoted points. Yeah, I get, like, I haven't done many interviews on my channel, but there's a handful of, if you look in the history of my channel, I've done some interviews with some people over like various different controversies or whatever. And I've been given like criticism in the past where like there's certain times when somebody I'm interviewing will lie to my face, and I let them say what they say, and I don't like push a lot on them. And what people don't seem to understand with like some people that you're interviewing, if you push too hard, you won't get much out of them, and they'll just hang up and they'll leave, right? So there's certain people that I've interviewed in the past where I just let them talk, and then the audience can decide how they feel about when they say something. Like, I'll push them a little bit, but I won't push too hard because I'm not trying to get them to just leave, right? I'll push enough to where it's like, come on, you don't think I actually believe that, right? When I know they're lying to my face. But like, I think that's something that the audience will often look for, like blood sports. They want like this insane like barrage of like insults directed at the person who's clearly in the wrong. And like, you can't do that sometimes when you're interviewing someone. Sometimes you just let them talk and you let the audience decide how they feel about what's being said. Having said that, in this particular situation, we're only 8 minutes into this thing, and Chaya has already said a lot of really insane shit and has gotten almost zero pushback from Taylor. Like, what the fuck?
So I know you have a lot of concerns about educational materials and books, library books and things, especially...
They're importing people who want to destroy America and who come here.
Taylor has let Chaya take control of this interview at this point. Taylor's trying to direct the questioning somewhere else, and Chaya's bringing it back. Like, Taylor has done a really bad job with this interview. Taylor does not have control of this interview right now. She has control of the interview.
And do not stand for what America stands for. So, and I think, and we see it, there's time after time after time after time. They come in, they're destroying our cities, they bring crime with them, and they are bringing them in to replace us. And yeah, I think people from various countries, they're all different.
So, just back to the sort of education stuff, I know that you're interested in...
Want to destroy America? How deluded should you be to say something like that? Yeah, it's really... It's so nuts.
A bunch of books from libraries that you consider inappropriate. I was just wondering, out of all the books that you've sort of tried to get removed, how many have you read?
I've read a couple of them.
Which ones?
Genderqueer. I've read This Book is Gay. I've read Flamer. I've read...
I don't believe any of this. I mean, how do you have time? Let me bring up her Twitter account really quick. Let's bring up the Libs of TikTok Twitter account really quick. I don't understand how you could have time to read any of these books when you spend as much time as you do tweeting about like gay and trans people all day long. Like, they tweet about stuff all day long. Look at this. 35 minutes ago was this one. We got an hour ago, 7 hours ago, and this wasn't even her, this is a retweet. An hour ago, 2 hours ago. Like, how do you have time to read any of these books that you're having banned in schools when all you do is tweet all fucking day long. Like, I'm sorry, I don't buy that. I don't think she's actually read any of those books.
What were some of the other ones? My Shadow is Pink. It Feels Good to Be Yourself. There's so many more. Tons of them.
How do you kind of square, would you say, I feel like you are, or at least I feel like you've spoken about free speech before and the need for free speech and sort of supported Elon Musk's sentiments in that area. Would you say that you're a free speech?
By the way, Zero Core, I see what you're saying in the chat. I'm looking and none of that's being dealt with by the mods. It looks like you're getting hit with YouTube's auto filter. So none of my mods are suppressing you. I don't know. I have no control over what YouTube decides to filter out.
Speech supporter?
Yeah.
So how do you square the sort of being this free speech supporter with wanting to ban literature?
What kind of literature?
I was talking about this earlier in the stream. This topic came up earlier in the stream, right? It's so insane to me that these conservatives are always on about free speech. And here's the thing. I'm in favor of free speech too, right? I think people should have the freedom to express their own views and beliefs and whatnot. Like, I'm totally in favor of that. But I think it's really funny when you have the conservative movement, who is probably the most outspoken when it comes to freedom of speech, right? And then they're banning books that they disagree with. Like, I'm sorry, but like, banning books is the most anti-free speech thing that you could possibly fucking do. Like, what?
Any kind of literature. I mean, I would think that
What kind of literature am I trying to ban?
Oh, I thought you were just trying to say you've made an effort to get books removed from schools.
What kind of books?
Books dealing with LGBTQ people and sexual
No, that's
education.
not what I said.
Oh, so you're not trying to get any books banned from school?
That's not what I said either.
Okay, why don't you explain to me what
is it that she's doing then? Like, what?
thinking about this?
You just accused me of wanting to ban books. What kind of books am I trying to ban?
You tell me.
You just accused me of trying to ban books. What kind of books am I trying to ban? Oh my, what is this? What the fuck is this?
I'm not trying to ban anything.
But you're not trying to ban any
Who
books.
said I'm trying to ban books?
Are you trying to remove books from libraries?
From public school libraries.
Okay. So how do you square your sort of notion of free speech and free expression and allowing all of that stuff with wanting literature removed and wanting access to information removed?
What kind of literature?
You tell me.
Porn.
Oh, so you're in favor of free speech as long as it's the speech that you agree with. Okay, got it.
Gay porn.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Gay porn. Gay. Oh my God. Wasn't one of the books that got banned like The Diary of Anne Frank? I'm sorry, but I don't think The Diary of Anne Frank falls under the category of gay porn. Like, I'm pretty sure. Let me look that up to make sure I got that right. Diary of Anne Frank banned. Pretty sure that's one of the books that got removed from libraries. Yeah, Anne Frank book removed by Florida school. It happened in Canadian schools. Like, yeah, The Diary of Anne Frank, of all things, is being removed from schools. And I'm sorry, but I don't think that that falls under the category of gay porn.
Nice argument. Why don't you back it up with a source?
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
The topic of this started is, have you read any of the books you want to remove? And Chaya listed off those books and now has backtracked. Yeah, pretty much.
And what do you consider gay porn in these books?
So you want to see it?
Are you talking about the stuff that you've tweeted, basically? You consider...
Why the heck did The Diary of Anne Frank get banned? I don't know of all the specific instances, but if I remember correctly, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong in the chat on this one, because I'm just going off of memory, I think one of the places that opted to remove it from school libraries was because there is mention of Anne Frank being, I guess you would call it, bi-curious or something like that. Like, she talked about her thinking she might be romantically and sexually interested in other girls. And so I think that's the reason why they opted to remove it, if I remember correctly. Again, if I'm wrong on that, feel free to correct me in the chat, but I think I read something about that, which is fucking insane.
Yeah, like there's pictures of like blowjobs and like how to have gay sex with like naked people and people masturbating and stuff. Yeah.
Did you?
Like pictures of it.
Oh,
Yeah.
totally. And
Yeah.
I went to public school. And we had a sex ed class in public school where we were shown, information about sexual health and...
That's what I also heard, Tipster. Okay, so I was remembering that correctly. They talk about Nazis in the book. It's too politically biased for schools. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Sex and masturbation and things like that. I'm curious about your own education. I mean, was that something did you ever go to a sex ed class, or is this all sort of new to you where you're sort of learning about how this works in public schools?
I don't live under a rock.
So you did have sex ed classes?
That didn't answer the question.
We had some kind of education, yeah.
So you do think it's important for children to have education, sex education?
Not the way they're doing it in public schools.
How are they doing it?
They're giving kids porn and telling...
I went through the public school system, and I went through sex education. We had a very basic... I've shared my experience with this before, but we had a very basic... I almost am hesitant to call it sex education because it really didn't talk about the sexual aspect of it at all. But in 5th grade, still at elementary school, we had sex education where they were just basically talking about the changes in your body and how that would affect personal hygiene, that sort of thing. So it was kind of like, hey, you're going to sweat a little bit more, so you're going to have to start using deodorant. For the ladies, you're going to experience that time of the month, so get familiar with tampons and pads, that sort of thing. Just that in relation to how it deals with personal hygiene. Then in middle school, usually about 7th or 8th grade, they get into a little bit more detail on sexual education. But again, it's nothing super graphic or whatever. High school is where they teach you like the really like serious stuff. But even then, they're not showing you porn. Okay, they're teaching you about how to keep yourself safe, how to, use protection and, how to avoid, getting STDs and getting tested for STDs and stuff like that. Like, these are the kind of things that they are teaching you in sexual education. It's not stuff like, hey, here's what hardcore gay sex looks like. And that's what these dipshits want you to believe. They want you to believe that it's a room full of kids watching people have gay sex. And it's like, no, that's not what's happening. Jeez.
3rd graders that they should masturbate. They're giving middle school children guides.
I was told to wear deodorant and put condoms on bananas, and that was about it. Yeah, I do. It's funny because every teacher does that. They demonstrate how to use a condom by putting it on a banana. And the other thing is, the one thing I do remember, and maybe other people experience this in sex ed as well, they do address the whole, like, some guys will try to avoid wearing a condom by saying, oh, it's too small, it doesn't fit, my massive fucking penis or whatever, right? And so they do kind of address that. It's like some guys will try to talk you out of making them use a condom because they'll say it doesn't fit them. And then they'll demonstrate how big a condom is by unraveling it completely, and you see how fucking long that shit is when it's fully unraveled. Or they'll fill it up with like water so you can see how big it fucking expands. And so it's basically like, so if a guy ever tells you he can't wear a condom because it's not big enough, he's lying to you. So essentially it's literally teaching young people how to be safe, because at the end of the day, like, nobody likes to talk about it, but young people have sex. Okay, I lost my virginity when I was a minor myself. Okay, young people have sex. So the idea is like, if you're gonna do it, at least be safe and protect yourself. You know what I mean? That's the kind of stuff they're teaching kids. They're not watching pornography or providing pornography to children. That's just an outright fucking lie.
To gay sex and anal sex, sex toys.
How would you describe the type of sex education that you would like to see in schools?
At this point, I want all sex education actually removed from schools because I don't trust the schools to do it.
Okay.
After what we've seen.
Yeah, see, that is terrible. That is a terrible fucking idea. Because then you have a bunch of sexually active teenagers engaging in sex acts, not knowing how to keep themselves safe, which is bad in itself. But not only that, But sex education has been proven to be helpful in preventing the exploitation of children as well. When kids are better informed about, you know, things like sexual education and whatnot, they can better identify when somebody is trying to exploit them and take advantage of them. So it helps in a positive way to prevent child abuse as well. So this idea that like, oh, I want to completely remove sex education from like schools, that is a bad fucking idea. And I think the funniest thing about it, so many people who are outspoken against sex education in schools, the excuse they give is, oh, I'd rather talk to my kids about them myself. You know how many parents that say that shit don't actually have that conversation with their kids ever? Like I've talked about this before on my streams where I talk about like my wife wasn't allowed by her parents to go to sexual education. And they never really had that conversation with her as well. So a lot of the conversations that my wife had to have about that stuff, she had to have it with me. So it's insane to me that like people are like, oh no, absolutely no sexual education in schools. Like absolutely not. No, I don't agree with that.
I don't trust them at all. Zero. We need to completely eradicate it and then redo it in a normal way that's appropriate.
So I saw you that you got banned from Stripe today. How much money did you have tied up in that platform?
I'm not going to get into that. Mm-hmm. They already restored me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you're back.
Yeah,
that was interesting. She was briefly removed, like banned from Stripe, and then they like restored her account. It was like, what was the point of banning her if they were just going to turn around and unban her? That was kind of weird.
I noticed, you know, I think it was around last summer.
They're using kids as a shield. Yeah, exactly, Sunbeam. That's exactly what they're doing. Because like I said before, you can easily convince people to believe the bullshit you're selling if you use kids to try and get the message across. If your goal to get the message across is LGBT people bad, and the reason you give is LGBT people, Jesus, let me try that again. LGBT people bad because they're grooming your kids. Like, you could easily sway a normie like, oh man, well, I don't want anybody to groom my kids. Fuck those people. Like normies that don't know any better. You could easily talk them into believing your bullshit position if you can convince them that, oh, well, these people are hurting children. Like, it literally is, as Sunbeam put it, it's literally using kids as a shield, as an excuse to, you know, try and make bigoted statements towards LGBT people.
You deleted a lot of your tweets and you kind of stopped posting. This is when Seth Dillon kind of tweeted, you know, asking if you fell off or, you know, saying that you weren't posting as you used to. What happened during that time, and did you think about quitting?
I have no idea, and no, I never thought about quitting.
Mm-hmm. Why'd you delete all your old posts?
It was just a one-time editorial decision. I stand by all my posts.
You know, I guess speaking of deleting posts, you still have a post up accusing the Uvalde shooter of being trans. Obviously, that's been debunked.
Yeah, there's a community note on it.
So why not remove that post if you're so comfortable with removing posts?
Because there's a community note. I think it's clear. It's obviously it was unintentional. There was a war.
So you're not going to admit that you were wrong. You're just like, oh, well, the internet says I was wrong, so whatever. No big deal. Like, okay.
Mark on it. It was from a meme, an account that was going around. And I'm glad there's a community note so people know that that was a mistake.
Do you believe if, say, a journalist posts something...
But you're not going to publicly admit, like, yeah, I got this one wrong. That was my bad. You're just like, oh, it's a community note, so whatever.
Actually incorrect or wrong, especially about someone else. You know, if somebody was to say something factually wrong about you, do you believe they should remove...
Professor Punkus in the chat says, teen pregnancy rate is at its lowest in decades. Watch how fast it'll go back up once you remove sex ed. Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think of it from that perspective, but yeah, that's true.
Remove that, or do you think they should be able to keep that content up?
Twitter is free speech. You know, people lie about me all the time on there.
I'm surprised she didn't do the cringe thing of calling it X. Nobody actually calls it X.
And
well, some people do, but the people who do are really fucking cringe.
They don't get taken down. If you want it has to go both ways.
So you believe that?
You know, the ones that are really cringy are not just the ones that will themselves call it X, but the ones that will see people call it Twitter and they'll correct them. Excuse me, it's X. It's like, shut the fuck up.
Shut up, bitch!
People should be allowed to keep up wrong information about you and have no recourse, be able to keep that up.
Free speech is free speech.
Okay.
Yeah, and look what happened when Twitter became free speech absolutist. Nazis now roam free there. Yeah, it's like Twitter, it has unfortunately always been a platform that's been a really fucking toxic platform. The way that platform is designed, it's literally designed to encourage like outrage farming and just people getting mad constantly. So Twitter has always been a super fucking toxic place. Having said that, it's only gotten worse since Elon took over because literal hate speech and bigotry is allowed on the platform. You know, previously, you know, if you called someone the F slur or you used the T slur towards someone or something like that, you would get banned for that stuff, right? Because that was against the terms of service. But now that stuff is allowed. So you've got an already toxic platform becoming an even worse platform because not only are people looking for excuses to be outraged on Twitter, but now they're looking for excuses to be outraged and bigoted on Twitter, and it's allowed to exist. It's fucking... Twitter's basically unusable at this point.
So I'm kind of curious how you square that with the letter that you sent this morning to V Sphere, claiming that, you know, you were going to try to sue her for slander. You know, if free speech is free speech, then why are you threatening your critics with lawsuits?
Well, defamation is different.
So would you call misidentifying a shooter's sexuality defamation?
No, I wouldn't. Like I said, there's already a community note on it. So I'm glad that people now.
And you admit that it's wrong, right? Was the Uvalde
yeah,
shooter
and
trans?
I wasn't the creator of that image.
Sure, but you can imagine if somebody amplified.
So you just can't admit that you posted misinformation. It's just, okay, it's a community note, it's whatever. It's out of my hands. Like, oh my God.
Wrong information.
You know, the media.
That is an insanely irresponsible use of your platform.
Like, you know, like Washington Post and other places, they lie all the time. They're never held accountable. They never remove it. They lie and lie and lie. So I am not going to, if you want to hold me to that level, then I get to hold you to that level as well. And all the other media.
Thank you very much. Somebody's asking in the chat, can we get a retard break? Yeah, sure. Why not?
Hold on. Retard break. I need a retard break. Give me a retard break for like 2 fucking minutes, okay? I can't keep listening to fucking retards.
Very true.
I fucking hate everyone.
Thank you for the biddies. I do appreciate it.
Yeah. So I just don't think, you know, it's not accurate.
I see a girl on the screen that's doing nothing but lying. Yes, this is very, very true.
What a fucking Weasley little liar, dude.
And a whole lot of stating what they claim to be facts without any sources.
Nice argument. Why don't you back it up with a source?
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
Oh shit! To compare it because
Was the Uvalde shooter trans?
the Uvalde shooter wasn't trans.
Got it. And so I guess knowing that you've posted wrong information, you're saying it should stay up and everybody else should be allowed to keep whatever they have up as well. Is that sort of your stance? Am I accurately understanding it?
Is there a law against?
No, I'm not asking law. I'm just asking your personal sort of opinion. I'm just kind of curious.
Wait. Is there a law against lying? So did she just admit that she lied? Wait, I have to hear that again.
Is that sort of your stance? Am I accurately understanding it?
Is there a law against?
No, I'm not asking law. I'm just
lying?
asking your personal.
Is there a law against lying? Oh my God. Oh shit. I don't. That's got to be a really big self-own right there.
Sort of opinion. I'm just kind of curious because it seems like you have come after other people, such as vSphere and other critics, saying you posted wrong information about me, take it down. I totally get that. That's your prerogative.
It's different with defaming a journalist like that. They're defaming me.
She actually believes that she's a journalist. That would be like me calling myself a journalist, which I know I talk about trending topics. I do not believe myself to be a journalist. I'm just some jackass on the internet who live streams and talks about topics that I find interesting. But like, holy shit. Imagine running the Libs of TikTok Twitter account and considering yourself a fucking journalist.
I fucking hate everyone.
And you don't think that calling a shooter trans when they weren't trans is defaming?
She's an outrage farmer. I mean, she's literally the quartering for Twitter. That's essentially what she is.
No.
Okay, interesting. I guess I'm
They're like, no, they're knowingly lying about me.
And what would you say that you did when you sort of posted that about the shooter being trans?
Like I said, an image that was going around for months that I shared from another thing accidentally, and I'm glad there's a community note on it.
But you can't delete the posts that you put out there that spread the misinformation in the first place. And here's the thing, right? Anybody who talks about like news, like they've made mistakes before. Like I talk about like, and again, I don't even consider myself a journalist, okay? But there's been times where I've covered topics on my channel and I got it wrong, okay? It happens sometimes. But the thing is, the difference between me and somebody who has like integrity versus somebody like Chaya Raichik who clearly doesn't is I might get something wrong, and then when it's brought to my attention I got it wrong, I'm going to take down my video and say, hey, I got this one wrong, guys. My apologies. It wasn't my intention to spread misinformation, but I got this wrong, and I'm sorry, okay? That's the difference. Whereas, like, her, she's like, oh, well, I got that wrong, but whatever. There's a community note on it. Wash my hands clean of it. Like, come on. You can't have that kind of attitude towards spreading misinformation and consider yourself a journalist. Get real.
I know you come from a more traditional family and sort of a more traditional culture. What does your family and think of your success? You know, you've made a huge career for yourself. You're obviously a rising star in conservative media. How's that affected your interpersonal relationships?
I'm not going to get personal. I'm going to get into my personal relationships.
Yeah. How's it affected your life? I mean, just dealing with this sort of fame relatively overnight.
So, I mean, thanks in partly to you, there's been a lot of like death threats, a lot of really nasty messages.
But you seem kind of proud about the press that you've received. I mean, your profile picture is holding up a newspaper with you in the headline.
Yeah, a newspaper where they just basically lied about me. I thought it's
that's on her like personal, not the Libs of TikTok Twitter, obviously, but what's her personal Twitter account? Let me see if I could find it, because I don't think I've seen the picture she was referring to. What is it? Chaya Raichik. Where is it? Where's her Twitter? Is she search debut? Oh, there she is. Chaya Raichik 10. What is this picture? Open image in new tab. Oh, I have heard about this. When Libs of TikTok posts, threats increasingly follow. I don't understand. Like, this is not a sane person. This is a very unhinged person, okay? Like, even if, okay, I'm obviously not saying that this stuff that's being posted about her in this headline isn't true, because it's verifiably true, okay? She speaks negatively of LGBTQ folks or organizations, and, like, people getting threatened when she posts about them, okay? So this is absolutely verifiably fucking true. But let's talk about this as if it was an alternate reality where people were saying about this about her and it wasn't true. Even if that were the case, I don't know if if this were me in this situation, if I would proudly post this as my fucking profile picture. People are essentially calling her a, what's the term? Something terrorist? I forget the term. Somebody in chat will post it. But people are essentially calling her a form of terrorist because, like, hospitals have been threatened with bombings and shit like that because of her posts. And she's, like, proudly posting this on her main Twitter account. Stochastic Terrorist. Yeah, that's what the one I was thinking about. Thank you. Holy shit. This is not a normal functioning person. This is not a normal functioning person.
It's funny that they just continue to make up these, like, lies and libels.
You've gotten a big, I mean, even if you...
Yeah, Stochastic Terrorist. Thank you.
Discount the mainstream media and just talk about the conservative media, I think your platform has risen pretty significantly. what changes has it had on you? I mean, I cover the content creator industry, and I've seen a lot of people go from sort of a very low-key life, which I would imagine you were living before, to a massive amount of attention and, you know, money and powerful people around you. How has that affected you?
Like I said, some safety issues, in part thanks to you and to some other members of the media. But I'm not going to get into my personal life.
Oh no, not about your personal life. I'm just wondering about your career aspirations. Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
We'll see. You can make all the plans you want, and God could decide something else.
So you don't have any sort of 5-year plan, 10-year plan?
I mean, I have plans, but nothing I'm going to share.
I'm curious, you know, if Trump was reelected, would you be interested in a job with his administration?
Maybe.
Who are you supporting in the election?
There's one candidate, Trump. Yeah.
Will you be campaigning on his behalf?
We'll see.
Are you hoping to kind of, I guess, like, would you see yourself in DC?
I haven't made any plans yet.
How did you get connected with Oklahoma, the state of Oklahoma, and how many times have you?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because if I remember correctly, like, she doesn't even live there, and now she's making like decisions about what books are allowed in Oklahoma public schools. Like, how does that fucking happen?
To that state.
I was there once. They have, unfortunately, a lot of wokeness in their red state, and I'm trying to help.
Oh my God. Imagine using the term wokeness like in an actual like IRL scenario. It's the same thing I said about her shirt, her Taylor Lorenz shirt, showing up to the interview wearing that. It's like very terminally online. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't think I've ever heard the term woke used unironically in like an IRL setting before in my life. It's so fucking terminally online.
How'd you originally how'd Oklahoma get on your radar as opposed to some others?
Because I started posting.
Like, even conservatives that I've talked to IRL, I've never heard them use the term woke unironically, like IRL. Like, oh my God.
About the stuff going on in schools there, like I do across the country. And then, people were very upset that this was happening in their schools.
So, and you've been once. What do you think qualifies you to be on the board or, have to do with education, the education system there? Being that I don't believe you have children in the Oklahoma schools, you don't live in Oklahoma, you've only been once. How does that qualify you to sort of serve in that capacity?
What are the qualifications that they require to be on this committee?
USA Today reported on that, but I believe it was that you had to, oh God, I might get it wrong, but I think you have to be some sort of educator. You have to have worked as an educator.
Okay, I was a teacher once.
You were?
Yeah.
Okay. So you feel like that qualifies you?
Oh God, I fear for anybody who was educated by her.
To sort of inform policies in Oklahoma.
I wasn't aware of any kind of qualifications that they require. I don't believe they require any qualifications.
Yeah, I was thinking more even just
That's kind of scary if true.
But that makes sense. I guess, speaking of Oklahoma, obviously we saw the tragic death of Nex, a young child.
Tragic.
I'm curious about your reaction. You posted a selfie shortly after people were asking you to address the issue, and you said, to the haters and the losers. Who are you addressing in that statement?
Anyone who hates me and anyone who's a loser.
Okay. Why would you choose to post that in response
That was
to
such a
people
vague
asking
statement.
you to speak about this child's death?
It was not a response to that.
I guess, why would you post that prior to making any statement about Nex's death?
So, just to be clear, you're trying to police me on when I'm allowed to post selfies?
No, just curious.
I wanted to post it. I thought it was a cute picture, and I just decided to post it.
How do you feel about Nex's death?
It's very tragic. It's horrible.
Do you believe Nex should have been
I find it very hard to believe that she gives a fuck about Nex.
allowed to receive gender-affirming care?
She should not be allowed to go on irreversible puberty blockers or get sex change surgery.
How do you think about the fact that, so often your posts, things that you post about hospitals, libraries, schools, etc., you know, after you make these posts about them, they deal with threats, sometimes bomb threats, sometimes harassment.
We don't know who's calling in the threats. And I mean, look, bomb threats are bad. I've said that 1,000 times. People who call in bomb threats should be arrested and investigated. You can't call in bomb threats. But I just don't know what does it have to do with.
Well, I guess, you know,
I mean, your posts are literally provoking people to engage in that kind of behavior. So don't you think you have some level of responsibility with your platform? At the bare fucking minimum. Okay, at the bare fucking minimum, if you put up a post that results in bomb threats being called against a hospital, for example, a children's hospital, don't you think it would at least be somewhat responsible for you to say, yeah, I heard about what happened at the children's hospital that I posted about. I don't condone or endorse that kind of behavior at the bare fucking minimum. Okay, like, come on.
A recent NBC investigation found at least 33 instances where you posted about a specific person or institution, and that person or institution was immediately bombarded with death threats and violent threats, including bomb threats, other violent threats. That's a pretty significant correlation. How do you what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't know if you saw, but I got like tons of death threats this week after the entire medium.
And again, like, I don't think that she should be getting death threats or anything either, but like, that's a dodge. You're not answering the fucking question. The question was basically, do you think you hold any kind of responsibility for these organizations or these people being targeted because of your actions? And instead of answering the question, you're like, well, I get death threats too. That's not okay, but it's not okay that the people you target are being attacked either. So like, answer the fucking question.
Came after me, so are they responsible?
What about me?
For those?
I don't think that there's the same correlation. Are you receiving bomb threats?
I'm receiving death threats, like, hi, I'm gonna come murder you.
Yeah, and I definitely sympathize with you there, because
like,
I get those
literally,
every day.
The article goes live, and then I get those threats.
I get the same thing when a Fox News article goes live.
So is the journalist responsible? The journalist who posted the article?
I would say,
if you have a platform where your posts or your statements are provoking outrage to the point that people are resorting to death threats and like legitimate, like dangerous attacks against people, yeah, you do hold some level of responsibility. Absolutely.
So there's a different responsibility when we're talking about media. And I guess to me, a death threat is different than a violent bomb threat. A death threat, I think we're kind of getting normalized to them, unfortunately, online. We get a lot of them. Probably you and I get them constantly, 24/7. I'm wondering kind of how
Yeah, I mean, it's an unfortunate reality. Like I said, anybody who has any kind of following has gotten death threats. I've gotten death threats before, and I don't think that those are okay. Like, I'm not trying to dumb them down to the point of saying, oh, it's okay to get death threats. It's not. But it is something that unfortunately happens enough that, like, you kind of do get numb to it a little bit. In this situation, we're talking about like bomb threats against fucking hospitals where, like, you know, there's hundreds of thousands of patients in them. Like, that's insane.
you think about taking these obscure people, right? Because you and I are both public figures, and I imagine you and I we have a high tolerance, right, for what we can handle online. Say you're taking a private citizen, you know, a gay teacher, for instance, in a small town, and you post about that person, and then that person subsequently, who had no media presence prior, receives pretty violent threats. How does that make you feel?
We need to answer the question first, though. Is the journalist responsible for actions that have to happen after?
You're not a journalist, and when it's easily verifiable to show that your actions are resulting in these types of violent threats against people, yes, you do have a responsibility for that. What? She won't answer a question and says she wants to deflect with stupid questions. It's like, yeah, you do have some level of responsibility for how you utilize your platform.
Do you consider sort of your posts about private citizens, incendiary posts, you consider that journalism?
I'm an independent journalist.
Uh-huh. And do you think that there's a difference between doing...
She thinks way too highly of herself. I'm sorry. I don't think somebody who just posts on Twitter shitting on like gay and trans people, I don't think that that person is a journalist. I'm sorry. You're just not.
Journalism on a completely private figure that has no public presence and no...
The same way I don't think of someone like fucking Jeremy from The Quartering as a journalist or Keemstar from fucking Drama Alert as a journalist, I don't think Chaya Raichik is a fucking journalist. And I think it's a joke for anybody in those positions to consider themselves a fucking journalist.
Institutional power versus reporting on a powerful public institution or person.
You still didn't answer the question. Is the journalist responsible for reporting?
Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I think I've seen enough of this shit. Like, this woman is absolutely fucking insane. She can't answer a question. She gives a lot of dude, trust me, bro arguments with no sources whatsoever.
Nice argument. Why don't you back it up with a source?
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
If you want to see the rest of the interview, I'll link it in the chat. And for those of you guys watching, this is a YouTube video later. I'll leave a link in the description. But holy shit, this woman cannot answer a single fucking question. It's just constant deflection, deflection, deflection. And woe is me, I get death threats. I don't want to take any responsibility for how I utilize my platform. It's fucking insane. Absolutely fucking insane.
Play that shit! Hipster!